Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start on this nice Monday morning over here as we get prepared for a new week. It's been a very boring and sideways weekend, as you would expect, and there are a few setups now luminous in the face that I wanted to follow up on to start off this week. Of course, it is the last week of September, so a lot to come to fruition here if it is to be. Anyways, with that in mind, big major shout out to Mr. John from the UK that we met last night. Absolutely stellar dude. Really, really cool meeting you. Even Elsa, Elsa, who's Finnish and is not used to like human connection, was like, "Oh my God, he was so cool. You need to, you need to give him a shout out." It's like, I was gonna do it anyways, but you know what, my friend? Good meeting you, brother, and hopefully your stay in Greece is the best possible. Anyways, and also shout out to your wife as well, who absolutely hates my lesbian voice. Anyways, let's get into it right now with Bitcoin, of course. As we started off right over here with CME opening up for the week. And I wanted to start off this analysis with the lower term timeframes because the lower term timeframes are actually the ones that are providing a bit of a bias here and do have a few new things going on. And so I wanted to start this analysis with the 6-hour time frame as we do observe extremely low BBWP coming off of a read of about 5.5 percentile or so, or low 5 digits there, of which this does suggest that we're probably looking at resolution of this range. You know, keeping in mind that a 6-hour only has 4 closures within a day, maybe a little bit later today around the, around US close, probably more likely tomorrow, Tuesday morning. So more boringness to come is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, in this case, we have the same tightening range that we had over the weekend and actually going all the way back to essentially the 19th of September. And it is this, as I bring up my drawing tools, top side of the range, right around about 19,700. Bottom side of the range right around about 18,500. I would go as far to say, and typically I don't necessarily like doing this, but if we do see a 6-hour time frame closure above about 19,600 or so, that would likely provide a resolution to the upside. And of course, to the downside, 18.5 is still the number that I'd be rolling with right here for an actual breakdown. In this case, any sort of a closure above the top side of the range, and I would be looking for Bitcoin to ultimately put in a nice rally somewhere around 20,005 to 20,650, so about $1,000 right there. And then very likely a pullback with a stop along the way at 20,150 in this case. And of course, to the downside, we do have a bit of a potential formation going on right here. We do observe a pair of lower highs, so a bit of a descending triangle. And of course, on confirmation of a breakdown, I would be looking at a measured move all the way down towards about 17,550, which is actually in alignment with the 1.272 Fibonacci extension right here. Anyways, other than that, as a reference, my node, there are a few things that are providing a bit of a bias on signals. The 6-hour time frame going back here, we do observe hidden bearish divergence. Now, to be fair, we already kind of tested the bottoms of the range. That was kind of last week's call based off of that. You could very easily argue that that's already played out. Same thing on the 12-hour here as well. A nice phantom drive. Same thing here though too. Of course, this would provide the bias that if we do see a further breakdown to the downside, then yeah, probably in for $1,000, maybe a little bit more extension on that move. Now, moving on into stochastic momentum, we can observe starting off with the 6-hour turning down as long as Bitcoin's below 19,325. So this is where the analysis starts to hopefully pull a few threads together and keep this number in mind, 19,325. Now, going on to the 4-hour, we do observe momentum turning down below about $19,000. And then, of course, all the other lower term timeframes are, as usual, bifurcated here, which makes things difficult. But 3-hour showing downside below 18,900 and hourly showing upside, I believe, above 19,650. So again, that's why I do say that short term today, Monday, probably still more range within this, about $1,000 range that we got going on. And resolution either, maybe later today, probably more likely tomorrow. Anyways, so moving now on into the higher term timeframes where I think things are a lot more interesting. I wanted to follow up on the daily and the weekly. Now, the daily is pivoted at 19,400, and the weekly, which closed on Friday for CME and spot last night, are at 19,200 for CME and spot is 19.4. I do trust CME's reads better in this case, but what I do want to highlight here is that the volatility of stochastic momentum is at extreme lows, similar to what we saw before the May move. That was the May move to the downside, similar to what we saw back in, there really isn't too many iterations of this, by the way, back in October 2020 before the biblical rally that we saw going from about 11,000 all the way up to to, ultimately 60,000. And then other than that, yeah, we have another biblical rally in 2019 over here, as you can see. Getting started from about 4,000 all the way up to 14, and then before that a nice downside move from about 6,000 all the way to 3,000. So yeah, very likely looking at a humongously major move. But here's the thing: when the volatility of stochastic momentum bases down here, it typically takes some time. And being that this is a weekly, well, actually this one over here kind of did pivot rather quickly, but being that it is a weekly, this can obviously eat up another few weeks before like the big move gets started. And with momentum already in these critical lows over here, I would suspect that if Bitcoin really fails to have like a catastrophic breakdown in the next few weeks, and when I say catastrophic, I'm talking about like 30-50% from where we're at right now, then obviously it's going to be very difficult to keep this momentum at this level for this long. So naturally, you're probably going to see a bit of upside pressure, which would kind of make sense coming into the last quarter of this year. So that would be like late October, maybe even more like November, which Bitcoin and just markets in general kind of are known for trying rallies there. But the question is, what happens in between? Well, of course, we can have a bias on that as well here. So I wanted to now follow up on the 2-day time frame, because that is the one that has been driving a lot of the biases to come, and of course the 5-day as well. Both of them kind of playing hand in hand here. But the 2-day and the 5-day, I believe, are closing at the same time. Yes, tomorrow night. It's going to be tomorrow night. So we'll go over the pivots there. But last night, the 2-day closed as well, being that it closes every other day, right? So it's not closing tonight, but tomorrow night's a big one for the next closure. And then last night, we have to follow up on the closures there. So last night, the pivot, I believe, was 19,004, 19,005, whatever it was. The number has moved up, I believe, to 19,700 or so right here. So that is typically a sign that downside pressure, resumes. And of course, what essentially is the signal, as I'm getting way ahead of myself right now. Well, the signal is this. Anytime that 2-day BBWP, which is essentially just a volatility indicator measuring the dispersion of returns, gets down to extreme lows, which in this case we're looking at 10 percentile or lower, the expansion phase off these extreme lows has led to an average move of just under 35%, done over the course of just about 2.5 weeks. Stochastic also has been correct in getting the direction of that volatility expansion about 84.5% of the time. Obviously, this is this number is going to go up because this one thus far has produced about an 11% move, and the first standard deviation, where we expect about 68% of the results to fall between, would give us a range between about 25.5% all the way up to 44% as a fly lands on my, hey, get the fuck off my mic, man, bitch. Sorry, probably just blew out some people's ears there. Apologies. Warning. Anyways, yes, so where was I before I was so rudely interrupted by these stupid insects? Well, as long as Bitcoin is below this number coming into tomorrow night's closure, yes, I still do look at this as more probabilistically speaking to continue to the downside. And seeing as we've already played out from the signal given, which was back here, to where we're at right now, of a move about 11, a little bit more than 11% or so, we can extrapolate that to the bottom end of the first standard deviation, just see what that would kind of produce. If you've been on this channel for a little while, well, you already know where I'm going with this, and that would give us, a generalized targeted range between about 15,000 to 16,000 bucks or so. Yeah, of course, there's going to be stops along the way as well. But here's the thing: keep in mind that the average days is about 19 days. Thus far, we are working on day number 10, I think. Day number 8 or 10, 9 or 10, something like that. Anyways, so that would imply that if we are going to expect a continuation here, we'd really be looking for this to happen over the next, let's say, 10 to 14 days. So that's going to put us into the first week of October. So yes. And of course, I would go as far to say that if we see the low-term timeframes resolve to the upside over here, that's very likely going to resolve this signal, or not resolve it, but complete this signal, meaning that this condition will be met for tomorrow. And then we can say that signal, was a little bit on the lower end, but it's done now, and it's time to be looking for the next one. I think that's a little bit less likely, simply because volatility is continuing to expand here, despite the somewhat boring weekend. But yes, it still isn't there. That's why we use indicators. That's why I use indicators, because it gives me an actual mathematical representation of that. And then what's very interesting to me is that the 5-day is pivoted around a similar region. Both of them, again, closing tomorrow, which is 19,450. And again here, if Bitcoin continues to close below this region, especially below $19,000, I'd say that's going to be a good indication that we're very likely to see continuation to the downside. Again, maybe even all the way down to $15,000 to $16,000. And to remind myself, that's actually the lower end of the first standard deviation. So, could theoretically go all the way to 35%, maybe even 44%. Those are within the realm of reason, is what I'm trying to say. So we're using statistics. Again, we're talking about statistics, not certainties, but gives us a good guideline if those numbers start to be hit there, which would bring things down significantly further. We're talking like 14,000 to 12,000 regions. So big numbers right there. But of course, as of right now, Bitcoin, it's kind of grinding down this range a bit. So I suppose I have a downside bias just based off of these metrics over here. But tomorrow's going to be a big one because I expect that this is really when these signals need to be resolved coming into the end of this month in September. And that's what's going to really be, once we get like September closure, that's going to be a lot more interesting for all of our higher term time frame indicators on the monthly. Other than that, though, I think that's a good place to leave off on this video. Massive shout out to John again. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. You're just a lovely guy to be meeting in such a random place as well, man. And if you're in Greece right now and you see me, I'm more than happy to always chat. So all good. And I think I'll sign off on that note. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.